finished objects, thrifted yarn, is it worth it? And some other things that are just on my mind at this time. I'm Audrey from Fire and Fiber, and in this very short reprieve I've had from my imposter syndrome, I've decided to record a podcast about all of my favorite things, yarn related, thrifting, and otherwise. So thanks for joining me. So I made a handy dandy list. So I am someone who is kind of late to the game when it comes to knitting. I have been a crocheter for a long time, really only just figured out knitting in the last couple of years when I decided to work on socks. If you've ever tried to make them, you will also know that there's not really a great pattern for crochet socks. And so I picked up knitting again for the first time in 30 years. And 3 years later, here I am. I'm coming to you from my office / craft room / front bedroom in my house in Cambridge, Ontario. I am an Indigenous mother. Feels very weird to still say that. I'm a mother. I am a social service worker. I am a community activist, and I am an obsessive knitter. Knitting is my current hyperfixation. For any of my ADHD girlies or guys or friends, gabies or babies, whatever, you will also know what that's like. So I wanted to sort of structure my podcast in a way that made sense to me. Having said that, as someone with ADHD, I had to really, in thinking about podcasting, I was trying to figure out what I would like to see. I wanted to see things that would inspire. I wanted to see what people are working on, and I wanted someone who I could handle listening to gab for 30 to 45 minutes. That's not you. I'm really sorry. First off, we're going to start with finished objects. Am I the only one who hates blocking and finishing? I will let my finished objects pile become a very, very large pile before I will ever motivate myself to sit down, weave in my ends, do my blocking. I live in a very small house, so I think that's part of it. I just don't have the space. But anyways, I've been working on this. I'm going to check my Ravelry, but I believe I started this in October 2024. This is the Avena sweater by Knit Life Oils. I will link her down below. So it's kind of hard to pick up the color right now. I'm enjoying this beautiful sunshiny day here in Southwest Ontario where it's not raining, snowing, blizzarding, overcast, whatever. Absolutely immaculate. So I made my Avena. As you can see, I have not blocked her yet. I have woven in all of my ends. This I made in, I believe, a size 6. I'm going to have to check with a little bit of positive ease. I have not tried it on yet. Yoke here looks really separated, but in person it's a lot more subtle. Anyways, my yoke is a neon pastel sort of yoke cake from the Yarn Therapist. I picked that up at, I want to say, the Kitchener-Waterloo Fiber, what are we calling it? Knitters Guild, Fiber, whatever it is. Anyways, I picked it up last summer, fallish, and I had to wait to find the perfect project. I really, really liked the way the pattern was written. It was quite easy for me to understand. As someone who's not a fan of German short rows, I even found this pattern tolerable. The body is made with Estelle DK. It is my personal favorite, cost-effective. So like I said, that is where my yoke comes from. The body of my sweater is made with Estelle DK, or Estelle double knit, if you will. This is my all-time favorite cost-effective workhorse sort of yarn. It's got a bit of acrylic in it, a bit of wool. It wears well, it washes well, and it's pretty inexpensive. The body and sleeves are made with my personal favorite cost-effective workhorse yarn, which is Estelle double knit. Picked it up at my local yarn store, where I also sometimes work Dollhouse yarn. Anyways, like I said, I still have to block it. I will definitely post a photo once I'm done and update my Ravelry. My next finished object is the Matcha Mood Shawl by Melanie Berg. I knit this as a sample for the store that I work at, and I have not blocked it or woven the ends yet. I'm going to be honest, this pattern really, really tested me. Although she does provide a roadmap for your rows, I found it very confusing, especially when it comes to the charts that she includes. The charts are set up with 3 sections, but the actual pattern is worked in 5 sections. So while she does write out in each, I want to call like subsection of the roadmap, you'll see 4 times A, 0 times B, or 4 times A, 1 times B, whatever. And it alternates. I did find it hard to get started. I actually frogged quite a few. However, the pattern overall is beautiful. Once you figure out what you're doing, it works up incredibly quickly. It starts with lace work. That starts with the full pattern repeat and slowly decreases to the modified garter rows. You can see it gets shorter. Then right in the middle, we have a nice easy section of, I want to say like a modified garter. And then we repeat the pattern again, going back all the way up. This was knit with Katya's Concept Atina, which is an extra fine merino wool and cashmere. We knit this in the color 92. It's a really lovely, again, kind of hard to pick up on the color, but it's a really gorgeous mint shade. This feels like cozying up with a blanket and a nice cup of tea after a really long day in front of a fire. Just very lovely, very decadent. All in all, beautiful pattern. As someone who would classify themselves as an intermediate knitter, I thought it was just me having trouble with the pattern until I showed it to a few of my friends, and they also agreed that it can be a little bit confusing. Anyways, that is that. So the other part of the matcha mood, whatever we're calling it, pattern that I wanted to highlight was the needles that I used. I purchased a while ago these collage with a K square needles. If you are a knitter and you have carpal tunnel syndrome like me, you've probably heard of these. The idea is that square needles give your hands a bit of a break. I'm not really entirely sure why. Square needles are marketed towards people who suffer from tendinitis, carpal tunnel syndrome, that sort of thing. I thought they were really cool to try. The other part I liked about these is that they have a really soft, flexible cord. So I was really intrigued by these. I don't know that I would reach for them every time, but they are very cool. So the other great thing about them is that they are a Canadian company. I believe they are out of the Ottawa area. They're made in Canada. That is collage. Another finished object I wanted to bring up was my very cute Parisian-inspired ascot style kerchiefs. We all have seen the patterns from a very famous European designer who's made something like this. Here's my 2 cents. I am not interested in supporting a designer who isn't size inclusive. And what I mean by that, I am a size 18-20. In this person's patterns, I typically go up to a 5X when I look at the measurements. I'm not a 5X, I'm a 2X in most sizes. So that begs the question, what about people bigger than me? 2025, and to be honest, I really don't understand why we can't have size inclusivity in patterns, like true size inclusivity, not just up to 20. There are so many amazing size inclusive knitwear designers out there that I personally feel like giving my money to someone who is actually inclusive. Having said that, we all know the designer. The patterns are beautiful. The photography is great. The color schemes, everything. They are beautiful knits. And I've even purchased a pattern of theirs before. I've made the very famous double brimmed hat that I'm not going to mention. And there is a lot of great elements to it, especially when we look at the videos that that designer provides with their pattern. However, I was inspired by Lava Girl Knits on Instagram. She made what was called a no-fee scarf, and I was inspired to do the same. And I just kind of winged it. I went without a pattern, just kind of did what felt right. So the 2 yarns I used, I had some Thrifted Lang cashmere in kind of like a gray taupe color, and I held it double with this really gorgeous rainbow mohair from Piper Knits. Piper Knits is a local yarn company, and by local I mean here in KW. They are the coolest humans, and I've shopped from them before. Actually, last spring, I met them at the Fergus Fiber Festival. I had seen one of their sample pieces was, I believe, a love note top held together. It was like a gray or a white, and it was held together with this beautiful rainbowy mohair. The name of the mohair is actually called 50 Shades of Gay, which I love. Immediately interested. So I ended up going and purchasing this from them after the fact, drove out to Kitchener, did a whole front porch pickup. Anyways, I ended up purchasing this mohair and I had quite a bit left over. So I saved it for a rainy day and I found the perfect project. Again, that's Lang cashmere that I thrifted in this sort of, actually, I have it right here. It's this sort of like, I'll link the color name down below. But anyways, that is my Lava Girl Knits inspired no-fee. I think she called it a no-fee with like 4 or 5. So since we've been talking about thrifted yarn, I love thrifting. And more than thrifting, I love being cheap. I don't know how many times I'm going to have to re-record this today. There's 2 things you should know about me. I love yarn and I love thrifting. I am cheap by nature. Frugal, economical, thrifty, whatever you want to call it. I want more bang for my buck, especially when it comes to my fiber. There are so many great options for destashing. Facebook Marketplace, Poshmark, there's Ravelry groups, there's Reddit groups, whatever. Anyways, I am in quite a few of these groups and I spend more time than I care to admit trolling Facebook Marketplace looking for deals. So I recently picked up 3 skeins. I believe this seller was in Barrie, so she shipped to me on flat rate, which was really great. I got 3 absolutely incredible skeins of fingering yarn from Whimsical Wool Co. Now, Whimsical Wool Co. is based out of the States. What I love about her, besides her immaculate plan pooling, her great color combos, she has the funniest names. Anything with a swear in it, I'm into it. So the 3 that I picked up, these are a few years old, but they've just been sitting in someone's stash and now they get to be loved by me in a new home. So this is One Hot Mess, it's a kind of a purpley indigo that goes to a neon lime green. Really, I'm going to have to work on the lighting in here. The next one I grabbed is Fuck Off, I'm Knitting, which, again, need I say more? Got some blue, some red, some purples, some really beautiful tonal blacks. The last one I grabbed is 2020 Can Kiss My Ass. Who remembers the pandemic? So great, right? Anyways, this one, oh, I just can't. It has tonals. It's got speckle. It's got rainbow. It's really just got everything that I could need. So, like I said, those were thrifted. I paid a fraction of the price for these. On top of the fact they weren't coming from the States. It was another local seller. It reduced my carbon footprint a tiny bit. I don't know if that's actually true, but that is what I'm going to tell myself. So those are some of my thrifted yarns. If anyone wants to see me go through my thrifted yarn collection, I'm more than happy to. Please let me know in the comments below if that's something you're interested in, or if I am the only one who cares about this. I don't know if I need to know that or not. But anyways, moving on to things I'm working on. So I normally have at least, I want to say 4 or 5 whips on the go. And that is work in progress, not whoosh. Anyways, it's a good pun, right? You can tell I'm a parent. I am a Drea Renee Knits fan. I'm a fangirl. I tried to avoid it. I tried to not drink the Kool-Aid. I couldn't help it. They're just such good patterns. So they're just such great patterns. I know people have mixed feelings about them. I personally love them. I know people have mixed feelings about them. I love Andrea's patterns. They're gorgeous. I had purchased yarn to make another frame sweater a while ago when my partner was in the hospital, and I went and returned it last weekend. I even said, I don't know why I bought this. I bought this yarn under duress. These colors are not me at all. Anyways, so enter my latest framed sweater. Still on the needles right now. I am using, again, my personal favorite, Estelle DK, for the ribbing. Then I've grabbed this really gorgeous, it's a Cascade 220 wave. It is the Sport Wave, the Superwash Sport Wave. I'll grab the color name below. And then I'm pairing it with this really beautiful, I think it's like a garam masala, spicy mustard, but darker, more brown sort of color. So I'm really excited about that. Color work, normally I find really intensive and takes a long time. However, because I've done this pattern before, it's a pretty simple repeat. I'm already flying through it. I'm super excited about it. I wanted to go over some of the things that are not necessarily knitting or thrifting related, but things that make my life better. If you are a large-bodied lady, if you are someone who is in your 30s and still getting acne, if you are someone who struggles with dermatitis, body acne, the like, you are my people. I'm your people. Everyone has been talking on TikTok, and yes, I was influenced by TikTok, but I'll get to that later. Everyone has been talking on TikTok about hypochlorous acid face and skin spray. This is the brand Element with 2 L's. I've seen a lot of people talk about this. The idea is that whatever it does, the idea is that hypochloric acid is apparently naturally produced by our white blood cells. It says use morning and night as a toner and as often as needed throughout the day. Let air dry. Some of the other things I read about this were that it is oxidizing. So anyone I was watching was recommending to make sure that your skin is fully dry before you apply this. So for me, that's a little bit of spray on my face and on my bum. If you're a big girl, you know what I'm talking about. I never had this problem until after I had my second child. And now any sort of sweat, anything on my behind, especially if I wear jeans more than 2 days in a row, it's not a good situation. Anyways, this stuff I've only been using for about a week, so I will have to report back. But as someone who struggles with chest acne, or like a real sensitivity to scented things that often will, a real sensitivity to scents that will often express itself on my skin. This has been a real help. I have even seen people on TikTok spraying it over top their makeup. I haven't worn a lot of makeup this week, so I can't really say one way or the other. I am curious about anything you can spray over top your makeup. Apparently it will kill bacteria at the moment, whatever. See, a lot of people have this in their gym bag. They spray it themselves down to, again, kill bacteria. I'm not sure about that just because of what I've read about it being oxidizing and need to be applied to dry skin. But anyways, I digress. The other thing I wanted to mention that I am a huge fan of, I've been using this for probably 2 years, year and a half. This is Carp. And what I'm talking about specifically is the antiperspirant underarm lotion. So I was introduced to Carp. I believe I saw something on Instagram or TikTok, something. The product I originally was interested in was a sweat reducing or a sweat stopping face lotion. I'm someone who is very warm bodied. I am someone who is on SSRIs. And if you know what SSRIs are, you know that in the summer, it's really difficult to regulate your internal body temperature and you're sweaty. Now, I didn't really stick with that product, but one that I did end up trying was their antiperspirant deodorant. And when I say that I have the worst body odor known to man, I'm not exaggerating. Again, this is something that happened after I had my second child. My hormones are all out of whack. I could not, for the longest time, find anything that would keep me smelling fresh. And when I say smelling fresh, I mean an hour to 2 hours into my day, I was smelling like a dirty old trucker. This helps a lot. So the whole premise is that it is apparently, I think it's developed by a dermatologist, and you are supposed to apply it before bed. I apply it in the morning because I've just never been in that habit. And they've recently come out with a bunch of new scents, flavors, I guess. The last one I used, I think, was a eucalyptus. This one is sandalwood, and it smells not incredibly masculine. Not that I'm opposed to masculine smelling deodorants, but you know what I mean. It is sort of like a little, I don't know if you can see that. It is a lotion as opposed to a traditional deodorant stick. Anyways, so that is something that I really like. They always have sales on their website, buy 3, get 1 free. They can do like build your package, your intro package. They have other products I've seen. They have lotion for sweaty palms, sweaty feet, sweaty body, all that sort of thing. I'm not sponsored by them. This is something I've spent my own money on for a very long time. A couple other things I wanted to point out in my thrift travels that were really exciting. And I look for these all the time. So if you know anyone who thrifts or does any of that sort of stuff, they'll tell you they have their items that they're constantly looking for. Mine, I found a bunch this week. And so these are really cool astrological mugs. Got a few of these now, which I'm really excited about. The other thing that I was thrifting this week is if you are a Pyrex or a Fire King or Anchor Hawking person, you know the big deal. I found a whole bunch of peach luster, Anchor Hawking, Fire King, Fireware, whatever we're calling it this week. I'm so excited. And I found it in really good condition. If you've ever seen it, you know it can be really beautiful or it can be beat to shit. Anyways, I was very excited about those. In things I've been reading or listening to, I wanted to talk about the Brahman podcast hosted by Hedley Thomas of The Australian. I got put on to Hedley Thomas and The Australian podcast a few years ago by my Aunt Katie. I don't know what it is about Aussies. I love their voice. I love everything about them. Between that and watching Bluey with my kids at my home, I really feel like I'm destined to live in Australia. Anyways, so the first podcast series I listened to is called The Teacher's Pet, about a man whose wife magically disappears. And because he's a local soccer star, no one says anything. He ends up moving in and marrying his 16-year-old student. The whole thing. Anyways, Hedley Thomas has done another podcast series called Brahman, which is also about a mom whose husband covered up her disappearance in the 90s and no one questioned it until years later. So that series has been, I think I just finished listening to episode 23. Beautifully done. The other thing I've been reading, and I just started this, is Medicine Unbundled by Gary Geddes. I normally try to alternate between a fiction and a nonfiction book, and I often will listen to audiobooks because I commute to work and I do lots of busy projects if I'm knitting or whatever. So picking up a physical book is sometimes difficult for me. However, this one is not available on Audible or any of the other audio formats, so I bit the bullet and bought it. This one is Medicine Unbundled, A Journey Through the Minefields of Indigenous Healthcare. I believe this book was published in 2019. To double check that. 2017, pardon me. And so Gary Getty's, I haven't really gotten into the book very much, but from what I can tell, I think it's going to be a good one, and I will update you. That's kind of it. My next step is getting a table that doesn't wobble when I talk. I never know how to finish these things, and I always feel really impressed when I see people who just have their whole shtick together, and they're like, rate, comment, subscribe down below, hit the bell button to get notifications. That stuff is really cool, and I would really appreciate it. So if you could, that would be great. Again, if there's anything you want to see in the comments, let me know. And for now, that's it. I'm Audrey. This is Fire and Fiber. Take care.